well, let me tell you a funny story about Misty. She's like,
She loves this story.
Yeah. So she's like, I'm emailing her saying, trying to get an interview with them, talk to them, upcoming projects and stuff like that. And she's like, she even replies back, she's like, awesome, great. I'm giving birth to my son. I'll get back to you in 3 days. And then we set something up.
For necessary evil.
One of my favorites, a good prisoner.
Cheers.
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 So, thank you for coming on.
Of course. Thanks for having us.
No, perfect. Well, this is another episode of Drunk in Public with our favorite people in the world. We talk about you ever since you came on the podcast, we've talked about you nonstop. And recently, I've been talking nonstop about you, Misty, from a previous podcast. I learned a lot about you, which I'm going to explain here a little bit, which is an insane story that I share a lot. It is a wonderful story. But welcome, guys, to another week in Drunk in Public. I'm your host, Victor Santana, and Drew over here, too. Bring the people together one beer at a time, one community at a time. We're here with Manhattan Project's Karl and Misty. We're in their soon-to-be building here in the next few months.
Yeah, I mean, it's we've actually owned it for over a year now. But we've just been dealing with some real estate issues like plating and things like that with the city of Dallas, and so we got our plans into the city. We got some comments back. We're getting ready to resubmit, so we should be breaking ground here in a few weeks. So
Exciting.
All this concrete's gonna be torn up for water lines and plumbing for all these tanks.
I know, it's super exciting. When we walked in, we saw there's the lines, tanks over here, and your kegs. It's exciting.
Yeah.
And then, congratulations on your cans moving tremendously fast.
Thank
They can't
you.
keep them stopped fast
No,
enough.
they can't. Yeah, it's been a very pleasant and welcome surprise of how quickly they've moved. So.
Well, you had a solid beer, and you guys had a really solid promotion, thanks to you, over the last, 2 years now?
Yeah, 2 years. We turned 2 in November 11th.
Nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, everybody know you had great beers, but then when the mass public see it and buy it in droves,
you
Yeah.
can kind of like reaffirm that you're making quality stuff.
Yeah. The business changed a lot. Not the business, but like the dynamics changed a lot once we went into package. We realized that's a completely different game than just draft. Like you reach a huge segment of the population that you just don't get in draft,
I mean, it was, I've been hearing from, talking to other people in the industry, and, and I was hearing anything between 50% package, all the way up to 80% package for some people, this like local, and I was like, okay, well, we'll probably start off 30, and then it'll probably climb, and then,
No.
I mean, like, month one, it became, 2/3 of our business, so.
Well, I want to say when you first announced you were dropping cans, so you did like this nice little Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter promo of the can logo for a while, what it's going to look like.
Little teasers.
Teasers.
Little drip campaign.
We had a little event
Yeah.
in there showcasing the cans, and it was phenomenal. But then when the cans dropped, it was like a free-for-all for like Necessary Evil and your porter, because once I knew it was out, I went to go buy it.
Yeah.
I had to go to 2 different supermarkets. I had to.
Yeah.
I went to Central Market, then I went to
Yeah.
Whole Foods, and I was like, they were selling out.
Yeah.
And then you did your next round, and then Necessary Evil was sold out again.
Yep.
Everywhere we went. And then one of my friends who was going to try to make it on a podcast couldn't make it, Jacob. He really loves your stuff. Looks for you guys all the time. And
Yeah.
for a while, he was like, they're not making Necessary Evil no more. I was like, they're making it.
Yeah, it's just gone.
But it's sold out.
It sells.
Yeah,
I mean,
the Necessary Evil being a lager, it has to sit and lager in the tank so it takes what, almost
It's like
60 days or?
it's about 5 weeks from start to package.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought it was even longer than that.
Yeah. So, yeah, it just takes a while. But then, everything else. We packaged, we packaged double Half-Life last week.
Yeah.
It got picked up on Tuesday, I think, Monday or Tuesday, and it was sold out by Friday.
Well, Central Market,
Yeah.
our friend Adam, who works over there, so big ups to Adam. He sold out immediately.
Yeah.
I think he texted us, like, yeah, don't come by over here. It's not here. I think he went from Captain
And they
Cabs.
bought like 45 cases too.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
gone. Like,
Yeah.
so
Crazy.
It's exciting.
It was funny. I was so Plains Capital is our lender on this
Nice.
on this project, and I was talking to our guy over there, and it was kind of after we first launched, and I think I mean, it was like a couple thousand cases or something, you know. And I was telling him, I was like, yeah, man, you know, it's gone really well. You know, it's a couple thousand cases. He's like, so is this like all like friends and family? Or, and I was like, dude, it's 2,000 cases, man. That's 8,000 six-packs.
You have a lot of
I was
friends.
like, I ain't got that many friends.
Listen, I secretly enough, I have a lot of hidden family friends, and I told them all to go buy all over DFW.
I mean, you're Italian. You have to.
You have to have married into a big family that's also married into another big family, who's also married into another big family, just to get half that. So no, it's super exciting. I've been super happy for you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for all the support too. It means a lot. Like that's the reason why our pull through is so good. Is because people like you keep talking about us. So.
Well,
We need to save this for the end, but I'm sorry.
No, we're saving it for them. We'll go whatever route you want to go.
What do you want to do next? You want to do Half-Life?
Yeah, let's do Half-Life and then double Half-Life. That one's double.
This is the Half-Life right here. I'll
This
start
one
the
double too?
rotation on this way.
I brought 2 doubles.
Yeah, because I really like that a lot too. But what I appreciate since day one with Karl, he had a discussion with us on the first time on the podcast about description of flavor.
Yeah.
Don't try to think about what people want to hear or what they think it should taste like. Think about what it tastes to you and then describe it.
Yeah.
And whatever you feel is good.
And don't get fancy about it. Like
Yeah, that's what, I think maybe the example we used, because when I have this discussion, I use a couple different examples, but I mean, I love the candy bar example, right? Like people will fight to the death over what's the better candy bar, you know, Twix or Snickers or whatever. But then if you're like, hey, what do you think of this beer? Like, I don't know anything about beer. It's like, what are you, like a candy bar aficionado? Like, you know, yeah, dude, you either like it or, I mean,
It's true, yeah.
You've been tasting things since the day you were born. Like, trust me, like, you may not have the same vocab as people who've been doing it for a long time, but I mean, you can taste. I mean, people can. Yeah,
I think we figured we were discussing the number of adjectives you can use to describe things. Like you don't have to get all flowery with it, just if you
No.
like it, or what do you like about it specifically, and you don't. Have
or
to
worse, don't get generic and be like, oh, it's smooth.
Yeah.
It's
That's my problem. It's still my biggest problem is using the same words over and over again.
Yeah.
One of my biggest things, which I'm still trying to do a counter for it, is how many times I say phenomenal during describing a beer that I like or in just in general of a podcast.
Yeah.
I say phenomenal way too much. Even when I describe, like I try to post stuff on Instagram or Facebook, I was like, this beer was phenomenal, and then I like try to do a little description afterwards.
As opposed to phenomenal.
So I use a little tip because I do all of our writing and everything that I do. I use Grammarly.
Oh, and you can like.
So I paid for not a plug.
Grammarly? Is there like
yeah,
an app?
it's an app.
Okay.
So I put everything in there before I post it, and it catches all of the adjectives that I use too often.
Ooh, I need to get that.
It's like $50 a year. It's
Done.
like
I got it.
It's like simple, like it's a
I need it.
thesaurus that'll like change them out for you, or.
it makes recommendations.
Okay.
Yeah, and grammar, punctuation,
Yeah,
spelling.
because
Oh,
there's-
it's
I
like
need that.
Because
it's like Microsoft Word, like on steroids.
It is.
Yeah, I've seen it, but I didn't. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I didn't know it was on the phone. I thought it was like only on.
Oh no, I use the desktop version. I'm sure you can use it, but it's an app for like a web app for your computer. But I'm sure they have one for the phone too.
Well,
but
I'm gonna look it up and see if there is app. I will get that. Cause I've subscribed to a lot of things, so I subscribe to a lot of stuff to help me. But he's the only one that helps me with my grammar.
Yeah.
Because I get excited about things, or I'm drunk half the time when I post it.
In public.
Yeah, drunk in public. Very, very drunk in public. Like when we go out, we had a major event over the weekend where we were at Community, and then we went over to a bottle share, a national bottle share.
yeah,
And I'm trying to make a post, and if it's not for Drew, he goes by and is like, "Yeah, we're gonna fix this. You gotta actually break that sentence in half."
yeah,
And
yeah. It'll do. You can determine what tone you
I
want.
don't have a job after this.
he do more than just this. Help me with my texting.
No,
Yeah, apparently your value is $50 a year.
Yeah.
Good to know.
$40. Last offer. Undercut me like this.
Thank you. So when we start making money, and just slide him to 50, he's good for the year.
Yeah, for sure.
No, but no, that helped us a lot, and that helped me connect the brand because I remember you so fondly. But then I started drinking more of your stuff. I really love stouts, Black Matter and the porter you guys also put out.
Did I bring it up? Here.
But it's phenomenal. It's again, I just used the word phenomenal, but it's really good. Something I gravitate to, and you guys make super crisp, clean beer, and that's something that's well balanced, which is also something we talked about. I like really balanced beer.
Yeah.
I don't like something that's off balance, where it's really heavy on the front end and it overpowers every other flavor. I like to
Yeah.
have a cohesion to it.
Yeah, we were just talking with someone the other day. I do most of our scheduling and planning for the year for what we're going to release, what styles we're looking at next.
Nice.
And we were talking about the other day about how we're slow to release. Most breweries are releasing a beer like every month, maybe every 2 to 3 weeks, and we're more like every 2 months. And part of that is because we won't release anything that the three of us unanimously, like, we have to agree on it. We have to agree that it is the best version of that style that we can find, or it doesn't go out the door. So our concession is that we're not always new to market with everything immediately, but you're not going to get a bad beer.
Yeah.
We talked about this with Robert at Craft Growlers, and that's what one of the things we talked about. We had a very lengthy discussion about you don't have to be first to market unless you're making something completely new. If you're doing something completely new, of course you're going to be first to market, but you don't have to follow the trend. Make the best version of what you can do or what you consider the best version that you guys produce, then push it out.
Yeah.
People find it.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, and I think for us, what's more important than being first to market is that our consumer knows that even if they don't love Belgian Golden Strongs, it's going to be a good one. So, yeah.
You might have some converts, they might not like the style, but then once they try yours.
Yeah, I see that. Like, especially Belgians, for whatever reason, people just hate on Belgians.
I'm not a fan of Belgian.
And I see it on Untapped all the time. They're like, I don't like this style, but this is a really good version of the style. I'm like, that's a huge win.
Yeah,
so that's always our goal.
No, and you taste it. That's why I think your brand does so well. Just because you see the logo, you see, first of all, your cans are also super unique. It's like this flat matte finish. That's super unique. I think it's also eye-catching in a different way. It's not too flamboyant.
Yeah.
But it's
a quiet little void on the shelf, or in some cases, a big void.
A big
yeah, you showed the picture of this big old void.
Yeah, there's all this chaos surrounding us, and then just
the uniformity across the middle.
Yeah.
Which is also eye-catching in a different kind of way.
Yeah.
It's also present. But when you taste one and then you buy the same 6-pack and you know it's going to be the same flavor, you expecting the same thing, it's quality.
Yeah.
Did you guys notice anything about the color of the cans? Anything specific?
Well, I think the lighter the can is, the darker the labels is.
Yeah. So that was something that was like, that's one of the things that's tough about when someone doesn't know a beer. They can look at it, but if they see, like Russian Imperial Stout, they may have no idea what that is. So once again, from an approachability standpoint, if someone just knows, hey, I like darker, maltier, roastier beers, then that's typically going to correlate with, darker in color. So, flavor and color don't always match up exactly, but that was kind of one of the challenges when we were trying to design this, was to figure out, like, okay, it's a can, you can't see through it. Like how can we express what's in that can without, being all over the map, make them look all cohesive at the same time.
Yeah,
But,
it needed to be part of an entire brand story. But it was interesting. So to go from, and I'm totally taking over your podcast.
No,
I'm sorry.
it's perfect.
So to go from, because we were on draft for so long, for 2 years before we went into package, and when we were on draft only, our marketing, like our sales marketing, was really limited to obviously word of mouth, like what I could do online. But then for a brand new consumer, it was the name of the beer because that's what you saw on the board, and maybe the logo. And then also you could do
Basically the atom.
Perfect. Then also you could do, you had to depend on your bartender to sample you on a beer, which then of course, you can sample a beer and then you order it. But then when we went into cans, it was a completely different game because they're not going to open up a can for you to sample in the middle of Whole Foods.
No.
So going into that, we had to think about the fact that it was my job, because I do all the branding and marketing and the storytelling. It was my job to make the first sale. Because again, like I had said, we had a whole different group of people that were being exposed to our beer that never got exposed to it when it was on draft. So the cans have to make the first sale. And then Jeremy, who is our co-founder and head brewer, he has to make the repeat sale with the quality.
With the quality in that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Repeatability.
But that, I think you guys had it nailed with I know bottling and canning is a completely different ball game of getting the uniform profile through. But I think you guys saw that base beer. I hear a lot of people complain about that. I've talked to other brewers.
Hazies are hard, but that's really about it. And they're just hard because they fall out quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're making a hazy
Shelf
beer,
life.
like the brewery wants you to drink it like within 48 hours.
Yeah. I don't think you guys have a problem with shelf life. I think you guys go.
No, it
push out
sells.
really
It sells
fast.
before. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. I like it kind of blew my mind a little bit about the color shift and
Yeah.
to the light to dark, but I like that you guys have the pairings in the back and stuff, and like little bitterness scale and stuff like that. That's really
Yeah.
cool because when people are looking at it, they're gonna look at it first and be attracted to it, and they're gonna like, oh, well, what does it say? Looking at it, oh, cool, this will go. Because we get a lot of questions with, hey, what pairs good with this?
Yeah.
And, you know, and so you can give all the recognitions you want, but if it's already on the can,
It's on the can.
yeah,
Makes it
that's
simple.
Yeah, so the scale that's on the back of all of the beers, it obviously changes beer to beer what that scale represents, and so we kind of, what we do is we pick the most kind of prominent character, the most defining character
Yeah.
of the beer, and that's kind of where what ends up on the scale, so people can you know.
Like necessary evil is drinkability. Like when you're drinking a
100%.
pilsner,
100%.
you know?
yeah. So what if it's gonna be like a barley wine, like drunkability? What's it gonna be
Yeah,
like?
probably.
Dan-
What if?
dangerousness.
Oh, so we just, well,
What's on
this is no longer going to be a secret, but because I'm about to, I can't keep secrets, by the
We
way.
have
So,
the exclusive scoop right here on Dell's
yes.
Beer Talk.
Yeah, so we just sent cans to print for 10 nanoseconds, our milkshake IPA. Yeah, so we're doing one more batch before it's gone, and so it'll be packaged. But our scale is decadence because, like, when you think about milkshake and like it's so, you know, thick and rich and delicious, like decadence and deca in 10 nanoseconds.
Ah,
and
see, that's what, it's the
That
attention
just,
to detail.
that just blew my mind.
Yeah, the attention to detail is
It's
something
very
that's
important what you
kinda-
guys do.
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, we're kind of nerds.
No, we love it though. We love it. You make me feel stupid every time I hang out with you guys. And I appreciate that. I really do. Honestly, it's not like I don't want to belittle myself. Like I know I'm not stupid, but I like being around people that I learn from every time. Even if it's for a few minutes we hang out and talk, I learn something new, and I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you.
And then, well, I shared the story a little bit earlier with you.
Yeah.
How I found out how much of a badass you are. I already knew talking to your husband that you keep everybody in line. You run everything. You keep everything tip top shape. And I already knew like you're really the head of the table when it comes to Manhattan Project. I already knew that from talking to your husband. But
At least he owns it.
yeah, basically, he's the brains. You're the boss. in
Hey.
You're the boss with brains.
charge. Well, you're more important. You're the one who runs it, and they all come to you. You know.
Yeah.
The boss doesn't have to be the leader. Doesn't have to be the smartest person on the table.
That's true.
You just need to have people come check in with them.
I'll be the most creative. We're good.
Yeah. The most important person at the peak. But I was hanging out with Teeny a few months ago, and she came on the podcast, and we were talking about like I kept saying I like this couple from this brewery, I like this couple from this brewery, I also like this brewery. So she's like, you talk about people's breweries, and you talk about brewers as couples. Who's your favorite couple? Who's your favorite brewery? Well, I was like, well, my favorite brewery is Manhattan Projects. I don't know you guys as a couple, but I was like, blah blah. The conversation went over. She's like, well, let me tell you a funny story about Misty. She's like,
She
like,
loves this story.
yeah. So she's like, I'm emailing her saying, trying to get an interview with them, you know, talk to them, upcoming projects and stuff like that. And she's like, she replies back, she's like, awesome, great. I'm giving birth to my son. I'll get back to you in 3 days. And then we set something up. her facial expression on the podcast was like, wait, what? Like, stop. You don't have to email me back. Take your time.
We were launching a brewery like at the same time, and actually the plan was the brewery was going to open with like within 2 weeks of giving birth, but then TBC and all that junk like delayed
Broke
it.
my heart.
Delayed it. So I was hustling at the hospital, like trying to get crap done, interview scheduled before Edison arrived.
That's why you're a badass. Like,
Yeah, 'cause he was what, 3 months old? Yeah, about 3 months old.
He was 3 months old when
3 months old when we launched, and so Misty had him like in a carrier, like everywhere we did launch events, we did all these parties, and I can go to 11, 12 o'clock at night, so he's just asleep in this carrier.
that kid could sleep anywhere.
Yeah.
So for the
That's good, though.
for the first like 10 months of his life, he did every pint night tap takeover strapped right here, and it was just I mean, a lot of venues have stories or pictures of me carrying a tray of beers that I'm sampling with an infant strapped to me, and I'm hustling beer, and I'm like, you gotta do what you gotta do.
That's a good icebreaker. Though.
it is a great story,
It was
icebreaker.
yeah, it was so easy to get people to buy my beer when I had a baby attached to me.
It's also true because who could be like, yeah, you sell a beer? Yeah, I got it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about the cost.
Yeah.
Girl Scouts, so you can't say no. You guys are so cute. You know,
Yeah.
Take all my money. Take all my
Yeah.
money.
No, that's phenomenal. You are badass. And we do appreciate the hustle, and we do respect that.
Thank
Phenomenal.
you.
And I gotta stop saying phenomenal. I just said it again.
We need to start calling you like Mr.
Spectacular.
Spectacular. I feel like Excelsior. Like I feel like Stan.
Excelsior.
I feel like Stan Lee. Spectacular. He says it all the time too. But that was his thing, Excelsior. I didn't know that was a New York thing. And I'm from New York City. I didn't know that until I was much older. Like looking up state models. This is how much I don't know things, and I'm easily impressed by little things.
So you guys have a lot of the equipment already here. Can't
Yeah.
see it off camera or on camera right now. But any fun stories from getting everything moved in? Because this is big pieces of equipment.
Yeah,
Any
so
craziness go on? Or?
so the first ship, because we've received multiple shipments, and so the first shipment, what was the name of that?
DFW movers.
Movers.
There's a video of them on our
I know, yeah.
Facebook.
Yeah, so I was like, it'd be cool, like you gotta get, it's exciting, your equipment shows up, you gotta get a video of it. So I was, shooting some video, and then these guys were like so serious, man. Like they were so serious.
I mean-
and so
I saw
was
the
like,
video, yeah.
So I was like, these guys deserve a serious video. So like it just ended up making it like this really kind of serious, like dramatic video of
Did
like.
you put music on it?
Yeah, it's got music.
And he wrote the music for it.
Got it. All right.
I was like listening to a bunch of like stock music, and I was like, nothing captures this. And
You
so
need
like,
something really dramatic.
so, yeah. So I wrote a little tune, and yeah, but that was those guys were awesome. I mean, they were great at their jobs, and so yeah, so that was that first big shipment. Then we've kind of received some trickle in stuff. We had I think it was it was this load here. This is I don't know if this is a hot or cold liquor tank. I don't know if they're identical or not, but no, they wouldn't be because one's I don't know. Anyways, it's one of them. But anyway, so there was a hot liquor tank, cold liquor tank, and a fermenter, and they were like, okay, we'll be there. We're on our way. We'll arrive overnight, and we'll be waiting for you in the morning. And we said, okay, well, we got to get the kid off to school.
Yeah, they park out front and nap.
Yeah, we'll got to get the kid to school and stuff. So I can probably be there around 8. Show up at 8. Nobody's here. Call. Oh yeah, they're almost there, right? Mm-hmm. So wait around, and so we had, it takes 2 people to do this, right? So we had, some guys here, waiting to help, and then finally, like 3 o'clock that day, they're like, oh, actually, we got mixed up. They're in like Phoenix, and yeah.
They sent the tanks to the wrong address.
Yeah. So they're like, okay, they're heading your way, and they'll be there once again. They'll be there overnight. You can see them.
From Phoenix? Okay.
Yeah, and then they
guys.
It ends up being like 7 o'clock the next. So we like waited like.
A whole 2 full days.
Yeah, I
almost.
was here for probably waited for like 20 something
like-
hours for the guys to show up.
Yeah, and had people were paying hourly to come
But
wait.
Wall ball. Do you have a wall ball tournament right here? I'm thinking?
Yeah.
What happened the second day is Gavin from 3 Nation was here, and I was like, well, you want to crack a beer? Because we were expecting him around 3 o'clock. They were like, we have them on GPS, we can see them on our screen.
Oh, nice.
They're 90 miles away. They'll be there at 3. So like Gavin shows up at like 3:15. They're not here yet. I was like, hey, you want to have a beer? So we have beer. Well, they didn't show up till 7, so you can imagine. By the time they got here, yeah.
Oh, pretty much, because we were exchanging sometimes as breweries. My dad is obsessed with one of Gavin's beers. Like, he doesn't want my beer and Carl's beer. He wants Gavin's beer.
Hey, it's funny how that works.
Yeah. So Gavin brought us a couple cases of his Oktoberfest, and then we were giving him a couple cases of our beer. So there were 4 cases of beer here, and no one else to drink them.
Could have called me. I would have suffered through.
Fought through all that.
Yeah, we love Gavin here too. We got to do another podcast with Gavin.
Yeah.
shortly. He makes a lot of phenomenal beers.
He does. He's
He's a great guy, man. He's really supportive of the beer community. And
he showed up to help us move tanks.
Yeah, and he's so positive. Like whenever I'm like ticked off about something that's going on, like and he's been doing it obviously longer than we have. So like he's kind of my go-to. I'll call him up and be like, hey man, did these guys ever try to pull this crap on you? Blah, blah, blah. And he's like, man, I just think kind of that's the way it is. It's, I don't think you're gonna get much better than, I mean, I think they try really hard, and
Don't be too hard.
like, it's better than other suppliers out there. Other suppliers just won't ever call you back, man. So the fact they even call you back is a good thing. And I'm like, all right.
So that could be a good thing. Unless you're like looking for somebody to commiserate with, they're being so positive. Like, stop being so positive.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you just want to argue with something. I like just yell at somebody just to let them listen. And I'm like,
Because Carl can't get that out of me. I'm like, yeah, like screw them. Like,
yeah.
So
But that's why you guys are married, and not him.
yeah,
And
then,
Gavin.
then that's why he has to call Gavin to have like someone take him down a notch.
How do I get rid of this stress? Yeah.
Because my wife isn't helping.
No.
She's just firing me up.
But I like that. I like the man. Yeah, fuck those guys. Because I'm the same way. But you always need that person. That's why I
Yeah.
do the podcast. And one of my really good friends is because I'm like, yo, fuck that person. He's like, nah, he's really cool. He's like, he's just probably having a bad day. It's like, I get he's probably having a bad day, but still, fuck that guy.
I tell you, it's specifically like like there's been times when I've, you know, whatever, as a company, I felt like I really, you know, or as a consultant or whatever, really kind of underperformed or was not nice or whatever. And then that person just calls me up and is like, hey man, just want to make sure, you know, we're good to go. And then that's always like eye-opening. You're like, dang, dude, I need to be more like that.
Yeah.
More forgiving.
No, I definitely, I see it all the time too with me. I've had instances where in this Dallas Beer Talk show, and I'm just like, man, fuck these guys. And people's like, you gotta relax, man. I have other people, like Jerry's another really nice guy that we hang out a lot with. He's a beer blogger. Really
Yeah,
super,
Jerry's super sweet.
super sweet and super
He's
supportive.
always so happy.
And the most genuine, nicest, happy
Yeah.
person you ever met. And sometimes I'm like, no, fuck this. Fuck these people over there.
Oh,
fuck these
that's
people
so
over there.
not Jerry.
And he was just, he'll listen.
He'll be like,
he'll,
well, let me tell you. And he'll
Yeah.
make some points.
and then,
Yeah.
what would you take about this perspective? How about this?
Yeah.
And he's like, okay. And then he just has like, he's like a counselor.
Yeah.
Motherfucker should have been a counselor. Like, he's such a nice guy. I love him.
Yeah.
But no, the beer community, I think Dallas is one of the better beer communities. And I've talked about this nonstop about it. But we drank a few beers and I talked about them. So Necessary Evil is a Pilsner or a lager?
Pilsner.
Pilsner. I really like Necessary Evil because my mom's Dominican, and our go-to beer in the Dominican Republic is a Pilsner called Presidente.
Okay.
And it was one of my favorite beers of all time. Mostly because I'm Dominican, I like it. But my family does. I have to like it. It's mandatory from the island.
Yeah.
But I like it a lot. But the Necessary Evil is crisper,
Yeah.
cleaner, and I think it has a little bit more body than what I would think of a Pilsner.
And it has a little bit of that dreaded H word for Pilsner drinkers.
H word.
Hops.
I mean, flavor. Well, you know, it's kind of cool to see like a lot of pilsners and lagers coming out from a lot of the craft breweries. Because we talked about this one time. You were wanting to make like a pale ale. You're like, you know, I've got all these big beers around and stuff and a lot of flavors. And sometimes I just want to come home and have something simple just to kick back and drink that.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think a lot of it is now that we're in cans, it's a lot easier to take the beer home with you.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's actually become Hoppenheimer for me. Because, you know, it's 68 IBUs, so it's not, I mean, it's probably similar IBUs to like Sierra Nevada Pale Ale.
Yeah.
And so, I was thinking we needed that in our portfolio, and then I started, you know, like just having beer in the fridge all the time, and I was like, you know, that's Hoppenheimer's.
Well,
so
but,
anyways.
but Necessary Evil is what I drink at events.
There you go, because of the low alcohol.
It's low alcohol.
That's easy
And,
drinking.
yeah.
It's an all-day drinking.
Yeah.
I call this a pool-time beer, basically, because you can sit by the pool, hang out with your friends all day,
Yes.
and drink this, and not get crazy.
And it pairs well with the pool.
Good description. I like it. I
Yeah.
like it.
So interesting thing about Pilsner. So it is a type of lager, a specific type of lager, and it's made with Pilsner malt. And so there's an off flavor, like if you ever seen like those off flavor tests where people talk about off flavors like acetaldehyde and all of those. Well, there's one called DMS or dimethyl sulfide, and that's kind of like when you drink like a Miller Lite and it starts to get warm and it has that kind of almost like a skunkiness to it.
I think
That's-
it tastes like corn.
Yeah, it seems to taste like corn, almost like moldy corn or something. I don't
Yeah.
know. But like, and some people have no problem with it, but technically it is an off flavor. And Misty's super sensitive to it. I'm pretty sensitive to it. And so that was one of the things we said, hey, if we're doing a Pilsner, you know, we got to, you know, we're talking with Jeremy through this, going, how do we avoid that? And so we do kind of an extra long boil that really drives off that. Because the DMS, when you boil it, that's how you basically get rid of it. Yeah, and so we do an extra long boil, and then obviously so the lagering process, we just, you know, where it sits there cold, I mean, a lot of the stuff kind of falls out and everything, so it clarifies. But that was so. I think that's something that's a little bit different. It's compared to a lot of pilsners, really low DMS, and then yeah, there's some dry hop to it. There's not a lot of bittering hop. I don't know what the IBUs are on it even.
I can't even remember.
It's not even. No one really asks, but
That's too many necessary evils ago.
Yeah, it's very,
but
very
it's
good. Necessary. What I would say is this: what you do appreciate and why I like what I come to pilsners. This is the go-to. As it gets warmer, it's still as drinkable as when it's fresh out
Yeah.
the fridge. Like it gets warmer, it's just as drinkable. With other pilsners or even lagers, the problem comes up when as it gets warmer.
Yeah.
It tastes like shit. It's
Yeah.
I don't know what the fuck.
That's
Well,
when
that's-
they serve it super duper cold.
yeah, that's
Rockies.
that's what I think is funny because it's just the colder it is, the less you can taste it, right?
Exactly.
Same thing with like on the other side when stuff starts getting really hot, like coffee. The hotter it is, the less you can taste it, and so. So yeah, I was having this conversation with somebody one time that was a big diehard, whatever Bud Light fan or something. It's like, Bud Light, but it's got to be served really cold. And I was like, hey man, I got news for you.
There's no flavor there.
You don't like Bud Light.
Your temperature.
No, you don't taste anything.
I'm just saying, you don't actually like it. I mean, you can get any beer cold enough and you won't. You need to barely taste it. But
Okay, so I'm the mom, so I have to head out to go
I'm sorry.
pick up our son and go hit an account and deliver glassware.
Hey,
Whoa.
well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for being here. Well,
Yeah.
we'll
Hosting
do it
us.
again, and then we'll stay here the whole time.
Yes.
What I
yes.
want to do next time is bring you some of my favorite beers. Well, I'm pretty sure you guys had it, but we just share some beers with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll have a bunch of fun stuff to talk about too.
Yeah.
Like over the next couple of months. We got a lot
We
coming
got a lot
up.
of events coming up.
Yeah, a lot of things. So thanks you guys.
Yeah,
No, thank you so much.
Bye.
We'll see you again.
now we can really start drinking.
Yeah. No, salud. Right? We all drink a little something different now, but all solid beer.
A great beer.
One of my favorite stouts right here. It's delicious.
Yeah, I definitely.
It definitely has a really unique roasty flavor to it. That it's like cinnamon and roast kind of flavor to me.
Yeah, so it's got cinnamon, vanilla, coffee are the kind of the adjuncts that are in there, and then obviously the grain gives it the roasty flavor and some of the chocolatiness. But I'll tell you what, something that's we haven't mentioned this on this podcast. I'm sure we mentioned it before. Is that we all all three of us, me and Missy and Jeremy, all have pretty dry palates. Like we don't like a lot of sweetness, which is not what's typically known as an American palate, right? Like if you look at all of our any fast food chain, whatever, they got sugar and everything. I mean, everything's super super sweet,
Yeah.
and so
Trust me, I know. My body.
so yeah, we try to keep everything as dry as we can, and when you're dealing with a stout, the residual sugar is actually what gives a stout some of its mouthfeel, what makes it feel kind of full and gives it like a full body. And so yeah, we were just kind of, as we were testing it and developing the recipe, we just kept kind of inching the sweetness up, and
more to
then
the sweet side?
and then we're just like, let's add some more oats, because the oats have similar to the hazy beers, like oats and wheat. There's proteins in them that make it feel fuller, give you a more softer mouthfeel and everything, more softer.
Appreciate that.
A softer mouthfeel.
Where's our Grammarly? We need a real-time Grammarly sometimes. I feel.
A more softer-ish. But yeah, so we kind of just crept up on, so it's not that, it's definitely not like Guinness, because Guinness is on nitro, right? That's why a lot of people say it's oh, that beer is so thick, and it's really just a nitro. If you didn't have nitro, that's actually kind of a watery beer.
I
It
don't like
doesn't-
nitro. I've
don't
never been a
like
fan of
nitro
nitro.
So there's one beer,
Yeah.
Old Rasputin.
Oh, I've never had that on nitro. That would be good though.
I've had that on nitro. Well, one time I had two of them, but that beer on nitro, because it's so
It's,
big
heavy
and
and
so
sweet.
bitter, and so on nitro they kind of took that bitterness edge off. But I think you need that 12% Russian Imperial Stout before the nitro really starts to make a lot of sense. But yeah, that beer was good. But anyways, yeah, so we tried to keep it as dry as possible. I think that's something that makes it a little bit different, is it's not going to have a real syrupiness to it, but it's going to have the roasty flavor like a stout. Yeah.
Well, just another problem with certain stouts. Not every stout. Two things I hate. One is the thinness of the stout. It's still a stout. It still makes the same materials. It's still in the same category, but it doesn't feel right to me.
Yeah.
And when I drink it, I had this long discussion with Drew before. We were at another brewery. I was drinking a stout. I was like, stout tastes great, but I don't like it. It's just too thin for me. It's not a stout to me.
Yeah.
When I drink a stout, I expect to have
a full
body experience, and I really enjoyed that. And this was just really thin water. It's like I'm drinking a lager that's made with malt, like a lot of malt. And I was like, ah.
Yeah, no, it's tough, man. Like it's, and then I think a lot of people like a lot of home brewers, you know, when they first get started or just people when they first start brewing, they make a stout and it turns out really well because you actually don't have to get really good fermentation. Like if your fermentation's kind of lousy, it actually will leave more residual sugar and then give it kind of that more mouthfeel and be really sweet and flavorful and so you can hide a lot in a stout, but yeah, we're just trying to keep it as dry as possible, but still.
It's delicious.
Give
And the
the
second
mouthfeel.
part I hate about stouts is when they warm up, or when you get to the bottom half of it, it's like syrup. And I hate that part in certain stouts where it becomes like it's too much of a mouthfeel, too thick, and it's sugary. And it's like I'm out to take maple.
Yeah,
Put some
no,
rock in
I
there.
mean, I think that's like, because one of the ways to get a good mouthfeel is to leave more residual sugar, but as it warms up, you're going to be able to perceive that more. And and it's not going to be pleasant.
No, and then those stouts, you're like, I gotta chug this fast. But some of those stouts are 10%. I'm like, chug this, I'm going down real fast.
It's like you want to, because you don't want it to be too cold when you're drinking it either. So you want to have like it warmed up to a certain extent. But yeah, I totally agree with that 100%.
The other thing that can affect that is that you typically don't carbonate stouts very much. Like you want them to be a little bit less carbonated because the carbonation can actually can kind of like wash that. You kind of get almost like a film like on your tongue when you drink a stout, and the carbonation kind of washes that off. Like we did a beer, it was kind of like a New Year's beer that we did, Trinitite. Did you guys have a chance to try that?
No.
somewhere?
What was it?
It was
Christmas sale.
a really small release,
yeah.
but it's in the style of like a brute IPA, right? So we went with a sparkling IPA as a name for ours, just because we tasted it against some brutes that were on the market, and it wasn't the same style. Like it wasn't the same. So we were like, and we didn't really know. It was funny because we had heard about this.
Yeah, 'cause
So
it's still new. You know?
yeah, it's new, and we heard about this trend, and we were like, man, that sounds really good. So the idea is there's a specific enzyme that you add during fermentation that takes all the long chain sugars that the yeast normally can't eat, and it breaks them down into simple sugars that the yeast can consume. And so basically, it turns all of the sugar that's in your beer or in your wort almost into food for the yeast. So it ends up being super, super dry, like no residual sweetness. And then, on top of that, so it's brut, like a brut champagne, right? And then on top of that, you're adding, adding some dry hop and some, whatever. So we're like, man, that sounds really interesting. And then at the same time, you're carbonating it really high, almost like a champagne, right?
How did yours turn out? Because I've had a few around the market, and I was not happy with it.
There's some variability, I feel like, especially because it's a newer style. But
Yeah, no, it's one of my favorite beers that I think we've ever made.
really,
Yeah, and we went with like a West Coast. Because it developed on like this, kind of came out of the West Coast. I don't remember who originated it, but
it was like by accident, right? Whenever they found out, like somebody had went to go make it, and they were making an IPA, and they did something along the way, and it just kind of became like oh crap! But it ended up being that new style, right? Is that sound familiar? Or is
I have no idea the backstory. Like for the first time.
He's looking for confirmation because we also heard the same story, but we don't know if it's true or not. So
Yeah.
he's kind of
I'm
telling
looking
the
for the
story.
head nod, like yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Carl?
I think we were on round 2 of our product development before any of us even tasted any of these beers that are on the market, and so and here's the thing is it's not like we were trying. I mean, we were never trying to copy some beer. We just heard the concept. We're like, a really dry, highly carbonated IPA. That sounds amazing. Let's go do
You
that.
also like drier drinks.
Yeah,
dry palate.
we're like super dry, like IPA, and then also because they're dry, you don't put a lot of bitterness on them either. It's just mostly hot flavor and aromas. It's similar to like the story with Half-Life, where, I mean, that's where Half-Life came from. Is that we just wanted an IPA that had all the flavor and the aroma of the hops without, just a ton of bitterness and a ton of
appreciate
maltiness. And so it's really just like a hop showcase is the idea behind it. But same thing with the brute. It's there's not a whole lot of malt character to it. But we played around with couple different yeasts and this West Coast kind of hop blend, and it's funny because so with the New England beers taking off, like everyone's gone towards the Citra and the Mosaic and kind of gone away from the Centennial and the Cascade and some of those West Coast hops. And man, when I first tasted this it's Trinitite. When I first tasted it, I was like, man, it just like took me to the West Coast, man. Like I was like, dude, I haven't had it's been a long time since I've had like this real like super like West Coast dank hop flavor. So, but yeah,
because a lot of the people have been shifting more towards like East Coast and Northeast.
Next time you make that, if you ever make it again, I want to try it.
oh yeah, we'll definitely make it again.
So
I'm sure we've got some cans of it laying around somewhere, some sample cans. So.
I mean, I could go hunting for it.
Oh no, we never sold it in cans, but like we have like a can seamer, and that's what we do our samples for like accounts and stuff like that. Well, prior to being in cans, that's what we did. But yeah, and then so the stuff that we don't can, we'll put it in like just little plain cans, slap a label on it, and use it for samples. But yeah, I'm sure we've got some of that laying around. It's
So
so good.
Trinitite, how did you guys come up with the name for that?
So Trinitite is like a glass-like material that when like sand becomes superheated, and so this is basically based off of like so like in the Trinity test site in so where they set off the test bombs, that sand that was in the desert there melted and became like a glass-like material, and that's called Trinitite. And so you think of like champagne, you think of like a big fancy bottle and kind of this dark glass, and it seemed kind of sort of, I don't know, glass, delicate. I don't know, just seemed to work.
No, cool, yeah,
So-
no, that's very interesting.
I like it. I like the name a lot. It's also memorable because one thing about which I like about your cans and your names, it's memorable because it's association with the brewery, association that sticks out. Because when you think of other breweries, when you go to say Specs, I'm not sure you guys in Specs. I don't think so. Are you?
Yeah, we are.
You're in Specs. Perfect. So Specs. When you go to the beer wall in Specs, I don't shop at Specs, but it's a massive beer wall. And everything sounds the same, everything looks the same, and you just lose your thought. Like, I think this beer is called this, maybe? I can't figure it out. But Double Half-Life associated with a Manhattan Project, or the beer logo with an atom with a beer in it,
It all kind of ties back to
life, and then
Yeah,
association connects.
Misty could probably talk about this better than I could, but that was something because Adelberts. Do you guys know Adelberts?
What the glasses again?
Yeah, so they did their bottles look really, their packaging looks great. Nothing against their packaging. The problem is, as a consumer, from a consumer perspective, I could never remember which one I'd had, which one I didn't have, which one I liked. And so they were too similar. So we were like, how do we, like, we want obviously to be cohesive so people can recognize it, but like, how do we, so that's like why, yeah, obviously the can's a different color. And then there's an accent color, and the accents color kind of represent where like the blue is it's kind of supposed to be a joke. It's like water, right?
There you go, insider info right here, guys.
And then the Double Half-Life has got the yellow, same as Half-Life, because that's kind of like in our hazy series. And then Hoppenheimer Green for hops IPA, gold, mostly just because it looks really cool.
It does look really good. Look great, man.
I think that's the cleanest can you guys have. Next to my favorite.
Oh, wait till the 10 nanoseconds comes out.
Okay.
Oh, so that's an interesting. Do you guys know where that name comes from? Have we talked about this?
No, we haven't.
Okay, so so there's a in a fission reaction, or there's a fission event, right? So basically, what happens is like a neutron flies out and hits an atom, and then splits that atom into two separate
Is
atoms.
that what they do in that big old
Collider?
chamber?
The Hadron Collider?
Well, that's actually, I think, two
Electrons, right?
or like two particles, and they're trying to see what's smaller than a particle. So they're trying to actually break the particles apart. This is really just like you've got like like uranium or plutonium. It's got this big nucleus of neutrons and protons, and this neutron comes flying in and then shatters it, and then it basically forms into two new molecules. And then also at that time it releases additional neutrons, and then those neutrons crash in. That's where the reaction comes from, right? Because like as soon as one happens and it releases neutrons, and they set off the rest, right? And so that process takes 20 nanoseconds, and so and you've heard like expression like 2 shakes of a lamb's tail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so it was kind of a joke, but they started, instead of saying 20 nanoseconds every time, they said 2 shakes. So since 20 nanoseconds is 2 shakes, then 10 nanoseconds is 1 shake,
It's like the
and 10 nanoseconds our beer is a milkshake IPA. So that's where the
I dare anybody in the DFW market to come up with a more attention to detail, hidden meanings, something coming out. Yeah.
I think that one was Jeremy's. He gets pretty obsessive.
That's
sometimes.
good though. That's good
Yeah.
because I mean that's interesting as a consumer to hear like kind of the backstory of it. You can call it just something plain like, oh, this is just our sunny day IPA, and there's something wrong with that, but it's cool to have something a little more intricate and to hear like the backstory behind it. So
Did you guys see that conversation on somebody had a Half-Life and a double Half-Life, and they were trying to it was almost like one of those like are you better at math than a 3rd grader type things, and they're like, so how many lives is this, and it actually took
Went on,
took
like,
a
a big
while.
thread?
Yeah.
I don't know. I gotta look that up.
I didn't see that, but
I didn't see that. I gotta look that up.
Yeah, and so they were like 0.75, and someone's like, no, because Half-Life would be 0.5,
Yeah.
and then double half. It was just.
It'd be 75. I would think 0.75. That's what I would think.
Well,
Well,
I think it's
if
just.
you say double of a half, depends on what you do. Because if you're dividing by, if you're
I think
multiplying
it's
a
just
fraction,
1.5, right?
1.5?
Like Half-Life is 0.5, and then double Half-Life is twice that. So I think it's 1.5, but
Okay.
Hey,
You know,
you get to decide
there were
it, though.
several
It's up to
different
you.
explanations.
You're the guy who runs it, so you can say whatever the right number is. Cause
There is no right
I was
answer.
already off. 'Cause I was like, when I talk about double Half-Life, I was like, okay, it's half, and then you take a quarter of that, double Half-Life. Then I was like, okay, 75. That's how I associated with it. But obviously it was wrong. It was off by a mile.
But yeah, no, I love and that's I love kind of the irony of that name. People are like, are you really going to call it double Half-Life? And we're like, yep.
See, my childhood brain was thinking, because I'm a big video game nerd, I was like, oh, they named it for Half-Life. It's a science game. It makes sense. But no.
So it's so Half-Life is a property of nuclear material as it decays. So nuclear material like breaks down, and so the rate at which it breaks down is called its half-life. So if you have 100 molecules, however long it takes you to get to 50 molecules would be the half-life. So it'll go from 100 to 50 to 25 in that same kind of linear fashion. So, and then it just had the name Half-Life, and it was kind of like it was a lighter, like less malty, less bitter IPA, and so that's
A bitter
where
IPA.
that name came from.
So if you guys ever start doing like stovepipes of like the big tall boys of a Half-Life, what are you guys gonna call that? I mean, do you have to?
We've released a version of Half-Life that well, here, this is actually something interesting to talk about. So we took basically original Half-Life and then did a 3rd round, because it's already dry hopped. It has 2 dry hop editions. So we did a 3rd round of dry hopping, but it's like a ton of hops. So it was more like when you have something from like Trillium or Tired Hands, like
Just
it's like super
load it up.
Yeah, super like hoppy, but
Not a fan of those,
yeah, and they're also $20 a 4-pack
Expensive to
from
make.
the brewery, right? So that's why, I mean, we like, it's just never. We've kind of been more like, hey, let's make beer for a lot of people, and so, but we did make this for our anniversary, and I thought it was really cool to call it Triple Half-Life. Jeremy thinks if it's Triple Half-Life, it needs to be a triple IPA, and I'm like, no, it doesn't really. Like, it's a different variation. So where Double Half-Life was a bigger version, it has more ABV, more IBU, more everything. Where Triple Half-Life essentially just Half-Life with extra dry hop in it. But it's been dry hopped 3 times, so
So you get the triple.
I think that
You just need like a little cycle, a little blurb, like triple the hops, triple the hopping.
We could do that every time someone buys it. It'd be on voice in every speaker.
No, whenever you whenever you crack it open, have like a little thing.
We could do it. We got the science for it. We got the manpower.
Production cost should be pretty minimal now, I think.
That could be a good troll. Like we could like say that like the can was specially designed to say true, and so you have to like put your ear like really close.
Let me shake it
Everyone's
real quick,
getting like
so
beer in their ear.
Yeah.
Oh, this is the Wise Monkeys?
Yeah.
It's really good. It's one of the few Belgians I actually could drink.
Are you just saying that because you talk so much?
No, I talked to him about it on the day the release party at Craft and Girls. I was there, and I was like, I don't like Belgium.
You did tell me that. I remember that because you were like pretty drunk that day.
Yeah, and I was like, you know what? I actually like. I'm still not a fan of the style, but I could drink their 6-pack of this. Like I drink it.
I wouldn't recommend drinking a 6-pack.
I mean,
It's
I
10%.
I drink a few big 6-packs before. No,
I'm gonna try some.
Do not try this at
do
home.
not drink. So
Without us.
Do not drink a 6-pack of Wise Monkeys
So me
by
and
yourself.
my-
All right, so tell me, what is it you don't like about, what bugs you about the Belgian? I mean, it's got to be the yeast. I mean, that's the main
I don't know if it's the
differentiator.
yeast. I get this like this weird. They say it's the cloves. Is it like banana cloves or something like that in it?
Well, that's from the yeast, right? So that they call that like esters, right? So they say, describe them as fruity. Where you get a lot of that in German beers too, but the German beers tend to go more kind of banana sort of flavor. Where the
Maybe this is why I like yours more because I don't get much of the banana clove, but I recognize it from the style.
I think I almost like I kind of describe it as it's almost like a little bit bubblegummy / cotton candy, kind of in that
Yeah, I definitely
variety.
get the bubblegum aspect of it for
All
sure.
the things I don't like. I don't like cotton candy. I don't like the big old bubble gum, like Bubblicious and all that. I wasn't a big fan like that. But the thing about this versus like early on, Drew was teaching me about beer, and because I'm not traditionally a beer drinker.
I mean, that's what the foundation of this podcast was
Yeah.
you teaching him about beer,
Well,
right?
us learning together. I mean, I had, and so we had this whole little
It was more
like,
him introducing me to
discussion.
beer.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm no pro by any means. I mean, I had dabbled a little bit more than he had, and he was a big shit talker. Well, still is, but
Yeah,
he was
well,
like, oh, I think and that's partly I think so much why he really relates to you and has endeared himself to you because he had this whole concept of like, craft beer, hipsters, uppity people drinking stuff. Like I'm gonna drink the simple stuff, and I just like liquor, And so I'm like, man, but there's really good beer, and people aren't really like that. Just drink some good stuff.
Yeah.
And then the people that we had come on the show, from the beer industry, you being one of them for sure. Just really welcoming, understanding like, hey, nobody's like a pro, and so you kind of learn. And I think that's half the battle for sure of him
It's
really
definitely
appreciating
something.
it. And the other day, I was at his apartment. He's got a lot of beer now, and so he's like, man, yeah, I've gotten in this beer cooler. I've got this one. He's like over here, like cellaring, and I'm like, look at you, man, look how far you come. I'm like
Hey,
it's crazy.
has he offered to like is he like gonna do like a multi-year vertical tasting? Because that's like the
Actually,
old.
yeah.
about that.
Yeah. Oh man, you got it.
He's made.
You're infected.
Yeah, definitely.
With some Big Bad Baptiste, I think we've got multiple years.
We have 2017. We have the quadruple 2017, 2018, and then we have the triple 2017, the triple 2018, and then we have the Baptista version, Big Baptista 2018. And I want to keep that until we get 2019 and 2020. And
So he's made it, man. He's made it.
So actually, one kind of a cool cellaring story was, I'm sure people have heard it a million times, but basically the way we started making beer, Misty and I were planning our wedding. We reached out to Jeremy and said, hey, can you make a beer for our wedding? And that's where Inception came from. And so he made that for our wedding, and we were partying after the wedding and everything, and I think he did like 24 ounce bottles. So basically like 4 cases, like a 5-gallon batch, right? And
that's a lot of beer to make for a wedding and for a friend. Yeah, that's awesome.
well, yeah, so he made that, and he also made a wheat for us as well, which like no one even touched the wheat until the Inception was gone.
So
But,
Inception's in
Yeah. So we were like, hey, we should save a bottle of this Inception. Like, we're just kind of, hey, let's say. So like we went through like all the coolers and stuff, and we found a bottle, and we were like, all right, like nobody drink this. We hid it off to the side somewhere.
next to the wedding cake.
So that's what we did not save any wedding cake, but we did cellar a bottle of Inception, and that's what we drank on our 1-year anniversary.
Hell yeah.
Was a bottle of Inception.
How did
so.
it hold up?
It held up well, especially because it's only
That's way
like
better than
7-ish, 7.4,
Okay.
something like that. But I mean, kept it in the closet, so kept the light off of it, and I mean, it was indoors, so
Yeah.
you can imagine it was
No variability.
variance.
70-ish degrees, so not perfect cellaring temperature, but
Yeah.
yeah, it held
For
up.
a year, that's definitely.
I'm worried about the temperature now because my fridge is a lot colder than you should have for cellaring like stouts.
Well, it's not going to do anything negative per se. It's just
Yeah.
not going to do as
It's not
much.
gonna age.
It's
the way
not gonna
I want
age as
The way I
much,
want
yeah.
to, yeah. So I have my mini fridge, which I'm gonna buy a bigger full size fridge that can actually control the temperature a little more because the mini
Yeah.
fridge has dials, and it's kind of hard to hit the temperature I want. And doesn't really hit it, so I'm keeping it a little colder. And I'm looking at fridges on eBay that I can buy that actually.
Yeah, and there's a little. It's like the same thing that people use for when they turn the freezer. Like right over there. You see those red lights on the wall?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a thermostat. So basically, you
nice.
plug you plug that into the wall, and then you plug your fridge into that, and then it has a little temperature probe, and then
Much cheaper.
yeah, and then it'll basically it just turns the whole fridge on and off. As needed. Yeah, and I would imagine it would work just as well for a fridge. I mean, we have them on freeze. Basically, we're taking a freezer to like 37, 38 degrees, but I'm sure it'd work the same for a fridge.
No, I'm gonna look into it. It'd be a lot cheaper than buying a whole new fridge, but I do want to buy another whole fridge because so
You're hooked. You're hooked.
no. Here's the thing. I got a mini fridge because I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have maybe 20 bottles. I'm gonna keep it for a while. That 20 bottles went to about 90 bottles, and then I'm still trying to drink the beers that get out of my fridges, but I'm still buying more beer to put in the fridge.
So his manager that he works with, he gifted him and a bunch of his manager's friends like a ton of bottles, like 3 big like TJ Maxx tote style bags
They give
of
us
like
about
all different
80,
sorts of bottles. and
Yeah,
stuff.
but he runs ultra marathons, and he's also into stouts and like same style of beers. I like stouts and porters, and apparently the group he runs with all like the same style, and they all sell the beer. So it's like a beer club that runs ultra marathons. So they're super in shape. Nothing like me and Drew.
Yeah.
We just like
The beer part of it.
we could sell it, but
Yeah.
the marathons we'll get there.
Yeah, no. So when he told them in one of his runs, they're like, oh, okay, cool. They all went back home, and there's people from Michigan, Chicago, and they were like, okay, here's a bunch of beer. Give it to them. And it was like really phenomenal, really super sweet.
Yeah, it's crazy in that beer.
Yeah. And we drank a lot of those beers, but my beer fridge is still not empty because I keep buying more beer.
So you said you gravitate towards stouts. So you like just plain old stouts, or do you like barrel aged stouts, or
I tend to enjoy more of the barrel aged stouts
because you're a whiskey guy,
I
right?
do like whiskey, so
Yeah.
I like the roasted notes on it, and I really do. So we're gonna have a whiskey episode. I didn't tell you about this yet.
Hey,
We're gonna have a whiskey episode. If you want to join, you're more than welcome to. We have a
Sounds
whiskey
dangerous.
tonight.
dangerously fun.
It's dangerous. It's fun. We're gonna smoke cigars. We're gonna be right next to a restaurant. So we're gonna do the podcast, put everything away, and then eat.
Nice.
So I have a little mapped out to it, but I do like the roasted notes of barrel aged whiskey. But I do enjoy the style overall. I do have some parts of the style I don't like. The lighter version of stouts, and even the lighter versions of even porters that's super watery. I do not enjoy those parts of it. But overall, I gravitate to the style more.
So my understanding, and once again, I don't like get super like academic on this stuff. But
No,
my
get it.
understanding is that a stout is actually a subcategory of porter.
Yeah.
It is a stout porter, right?
I learned that from Hops and Grains.
Yeah.
I learned that because they did a whole episode on porters and what the name came from and why they named it that.
Oh, where did porter come from?
London. It came from the porters in
Oh, okay.
the railroad industry. They made beers for them to drink, and their style they called it was porters. So that's where it came from. And it's I forgot why she said they picked malt, but it's basically because they barrel aged it and it was meant for them.
Yeah. Well, just is another interesting thing is that.
It's something you can drink warm while you're working on the railroad.
So yeah, and then a lot of it had to do with the water that was available, right? Because they didn't have the ability to demineralize, filter water, so they had to work with whatever spring water, whatever they had available.
Creek there nearby.
Yeah, and so the darker the grain, the more acidity the more acidity it adds, right? But the yeast have to have a specific range. So if you want to do a dark beer, like if you look at Guinness, like where it comes from, that water has a lot of mineral content, like a lot of limestone, calcium, things like
So
that.
that's why it tastes better over there versus when they make it over here.
Well, I mean, they probably use the same. I don't know. I've heard they have different recipes,
all in the head.
but
I just found out they had a warehouse here. They make beer for Guinness.
oh, in DFW?
And no, in United States.
Oh, in the United States.
Yeah, I think in Michigan.
Yeah, I've heard it's a different recipe, is what it is. I don't know if that's true or not, but
Could be. We're not insiders.
But basically, yeah. So you have this water that has a certain pH level, certain acidity to it, right? And then you add the grain. It's it's going to affect that pH. And so like dark roasted grains are going to actually contribute more acidity, and they're going to lower that pH. But so in order to have a dark beer, you have to start with like a higher pH. So that when you add the grain, you end up in the range you want to be at.
Okay.
And so that's why, like, if you look at like pilsners, right? Like, from like the water that was in that area was not extremely. I mean, it was more on the acidic side, versus the water where they made Guinness, which was more on like the basic side, like a higher pH. And so, yeah, I mean, that's how these styles really developed, was because they didn't have the ability to control water. Now we control water. We filter it, we mineralize it, we
however we want.
acidify it. We
Spoiled.
pH
Yeah.
up and pH down.
So we're very spoiled. But no, that leads to me why. So first and foremost, I started rum. I gravitated to whiskey, sweeter whiskey versus drier whiskey.
like Canadian stuff. Or?
Canadian bourbon is what I gravitated more than actual traditional whiskey, because it's more on the sweeter side. Still not as sweet as rum, of course, not made with sugar cane like rum is, but it's more on the sweeter side. And I could drink dry whiskey. I've learned to drink rye whiskey. I enjoy it. On the rocks, I enjoy it. But that leads me to what my stouts is. I like that style too more. But then leads me to what you asked. The original question earlier was why I don't like Belgian Strongs. IPAs is bitter. It's easy to point out. I don't like the bitterness of IPAs. It's overpowered. I think the clove or whatever it's made from Belgian Strongs sticks out to me so
that
abruptly
that fruitiness.
that I do not enjoy it. But
There's a real big, like, sharp, sweet kind of flavor.
yeah, and then it doesn't blend well. But this one doesn't have a big like a peak of sweetness to it. It's more of like a little hill, and then it mellows out. Then I enjoy it more.
Yeah, and that flavor will wear on your palate. We did a beer trip to Belgium. We got a buddy that works for American Airlines, and
Nice.
he was like, "Hey, you guys want to go?
Beer tour.
You guys want to go to Belgium this weekend?" We're like, "Yeah."
We can get there one day. Trust me. One day, we'd be like you.
Hey, just make friends with somebody that works at American Airlines.
Anybody out there want to make new friends? We're right here.
Anyone who wants to fly these guys to Europe,
Buddy passes.
buddy passes. Yeah.
So we were talking about cellaring and stuff, and so we had this idea, and kind of give me an idea what you think if this would be a good way to start some episodes. But we were thinking with this discussion about going, and everybody, there's a lot of people that cellar beer, around here that are in the beer industry, that are big beer fanatics and stuff. So we were thinking like, hey, what if we did some episodes where we go visit people's cellars, and they could show us like all their cellaring, and kind of like show off their stuff, and do something like that. Have you seen a lot of cellars that you've been to your friend's house and they got some crazy beers or different setups and stuff like that are pretty cool?
Oh no, I've like heard of a lot, and I've seen some pictures, but I've never like none of my friends are that. And really like when you're in the industry, that's like a hobby that's just more work, right?
Yeah. You're like, I'm already doing beer all day. Yeah.
Well, there's a few people I heard that do it, but I know more wine people who do cellaring.
I've seen some. Yeah, I got a kind of a friend of a friend that the brother of a friend actually, but they basically turned their entire dining room, like they bought a big wine fridge, like the size of a normal refrigerator, but for wine.
Yeah.
And they filled that up, and they bought another one, and they filled that up, and they bought another one, and so then they basically just took their whole dining room. Like you walk in their dining room, it's nothing but wine fridges, and
That's a hearty meal every night. You should be meeting the dining room for dinner.
They do what I do on once a week basis. They do that every night. They get a new bottle. That's our dinner. Put some vitamins in there. Put some protein.
I do that sometimes. I'm like, man, I'm hungry, and then I'm like, it'd be really easy just to open a beer.
Put vitamins in there. No, the craziest story I ever heard. I just heard this over this week from Todd from Craft and Growlers. He had his brother-in-law is his girlfriend's sister's husband, but they're not married. So basically, like a brother-in-law kind of situation. He has a whole wine cellar built into his. He's a rich guy, has a whole wine cellar built into his house, but he also has it on a spreadsheet to let him know when the actual peak date is to drink it, or year, I should say, peak year.
Yeah.
To drink it.
That would be dope. Imagine setting up like a system, because we work in the laboratory setting, and there's ways of like tracking things,
Yeah.
and they can give you notifications. So you get like an SMS text message. All right, go to this row. This bottle here.
I'm sure someone makes like inventory management software for like wine sellers.
I think he probably took an inventory, because that's basically inventory management. He types in what he just brought in, what he wants to sell her, what year it was made, and I think he may have built his own algorithm or pick with his idea, because he's a wine expert, quote unquote, of what he think the peak year would be, and then just put that in there, and he gets his notification when he goes into his wine cellar, and what peak year is for 2019, what peak that these wines.
Well, now he needs like a laser that's like on a pan and tilt, and it needs to like point.
Right
It needs to
here.
point like as you walk in, it just points to the optimal bottle.
It needs like a light with like a.
You can put a little
This one
robot.
right here.
This is the one.
It
This is
should,
the one.
it should automatically like create like a nice like wine flight for you like throughout like the month.
When I hit the lottery,
Or just like a robot that goes and grabs the wine and like puts it on a tray and
Serves it to you. It still has to have the towel right here that when it serves
it
it
is
to
still
you.
an extra arm with a towel on it.
So as far as the brewery goes, what are y'all thinking as far as parking wise? Because
This is an interesting parking situation.
yeah. So we own the
little lot right there
lot
next door?
there,
Oh,
and
okay,
then
okay.
also the lot kind of catty corner. So it's an L shape.
okay.
So we'll have have about 30 parking spots on site, and then actually because of the way the zoning's set up here, we're actually adding street parking as well. So like the parallel parking on the street. So we'll have like another 10 spots for that.
Okay.
And then this part of town, it's evenings and weekends, like all these businesses they're all kind of 8 to 5 businesses. So
Kinda snacks and
just
spots.
like all up and down the street. So yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Showcase because
Let's do it.
Yeah.
we'll wrap it up and do it because what I want to do is keep. So eventually, what we want to do, and I've been saying this for a long time on the podcast and to people, I make a Patreon because what I want to do is I feel like the Dallas DFW community and beer scene I really appreciate and I think is better than the rest. But I do not know because I haven't experienced other beer communities. So I want to take this on the road. I want to test this with Chicago. I want to test this in LA. I want
That'd be
to
fun.
test this in New York. And, check out other beer communities and see how they're interact. In general, I think the drinking friendship is universal.
Oh yeah.
I just think we'd do it better here, but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe
There's some
Chicago
good
do
there's
better.
some good beer communities out there.
I was gonna say yeah. So we had a podcast.
San Diego's pretty
Yeah, and they got a lot of beer out
strong,
there. Yeah.
real strong.
So we had talking about the little destination beer bottle share little experience they have going on in the 4 cities. Afterwards, we met up with 3 of the groups that put it together, and we had one of the guys from Beer Zombies. He had a house that he was staying at while he was here, and so we kind of got on the topic about DFW beer scenes. Granted, this is at the end of the night. We've all had all of our
A full
beers
day
from
of drinking,
full day of drinking.
Yeah.
And so Victor's up
Start
there.
off the community anniversary party, which
Yeah.
is notorious.
Yeah.
So, and Victor's like very strong in his convictions. That's what I love about him. And he's, I think DFW would put up against anybody else. And, and then some of the guys were like, whoa, man, what are you talking about? New York scene's great, man. I go here, I go here, I go here. And, so it was kind of funny to see that. So we got to put our money where our mouth is. We
I
gotta
know.
go out there and try it.
And
So,
travel. So,
yeah,
so 2 things I gotta do this weekend. I'm not doing anything this weekend. I'm being a shut-in. I got 3 episodes to edit, including this one, and then I got 2 bonus content to edit for our Instagram TV, and then eventually, if I'm not crazy and I ignore it, finally do the Patreon and set that up and promote that. And as far as like extra content, which I wanted to do it because a lot of stuff I edit out of our podcast, some of it's good, funny stuff. It just didn't flow well with the overall content. I want to
we
keep that,
ramble from time to time for sure.
but I want to keep that and put that on the Patreon
Yeah.
or even bonus content, somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I think we do a lot of good, funny stuff. Like the whole stuff about coffee doesn't ultimately promote Manhattan Project or talk about the beer community, but it's a community here in Dallas where we all enjoy. And
Yeah.
they're local here, and I think they do a really good job. And I want to keep those stuff. I don't want to keep those stuff out of our content.
Yeah,
You know.
for sure. For sure.
As far, we're really looking forward to you guys opening up.
Yeah, really are.
So are we, man.
I'm sure. You're
It's a long time coming.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know you guys feel it more than we do. I just really like you guys a lot, and I really appreciate you guys. I just really
Thank
was
you, man.
heartbroken when I found out. We talked about this when you released the Belgian Strong, that you were really disappointed that the situation happened. We could open it, and I was just being like a little baby, like, but I want you guys to open. I was acting like a little kid.
Yeah, but you know, it was cool. You know, like Hoppenstein bought Grapevine and ended up with a bunch of extra excess capacity, so it allowed us to kind of expand. And so if there's like a silver lining to it, it's kind of cool to, you know, before we get into the final commitment of owning, you know, the finished product here, which is, you know, it's a big investment between the building and the build out and the equipment and all of that. It's cool to be able to, and it's just somewhat comforting or reinforcing that we're able to hit these kind of numbers, you know, from a sales perspective that we need to hit. So
It's definitely very promising, and I'm sure it feels good for you guys to see it all flying off the shelf. So yeah, we're definitely excited. So yeah, I think there's probably two people just from the support we've gotten from different breweries that, you know, different groups, and yeah, this one is the number one that we definitely talk about the most for sure. Manhattan Project is brought up so many times, but Petty Colas as well. So we just love the support from the beer community, and you guys have been great. And so yeah, we're definitely looking forward to it. We'll be
thank
here
you.
for sure for the grand opening.
No,
Yeah,
for sure. There's
awesome.
only two people I guarantee would be for the grand opening. You guys are number one, and then our friend Dom, who's opening up
Yep.
False Idol Brewing. We
False
told
Idol,
him we guarantee to be there.
Oh, yeah.
It's the only two places, because I know I'm late for everything else.
Well,
But
cool.
I
Well,
appreciate it, brother.
Hey,
well, thank
thanks
you
so much.
guys.
Appreciate it. Manhattan Project, if you're not already following them, you can follow them anywhere on social media. They have their own website. It's phenomenal. Check them out. Also, if you're here in the DFW area, go buy that beer. Go buy it. Check. If you haven't tried it, gotta absolutely
You're
try
missing
it.
out.
Hey, you're definitely missing out. So everybody, go buy more beer. We love you guys. Don't drink and drive. Take a lift. Everybody have a safe weekend. Peace. We love you.